Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party. The 29th Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Pete Hegseth, Sergeant Major Eric J. Geressy, United States Army retired, Colonel Myron Reinke, United States Army retired, former commander of 2nd Squadron, 2nd Stryker Cavalry Regiment, Baghdad, Iraq, 2007 to 2008, and Colonel Michael Steele, United States Army retired, former commander of 3rd Brigade, 101st Airborne Division, Samar, Iraq, 2005 to 2006. Please remain standing for the presentation of colors, the national anthem sung by Sergeant First Class Adam Struby, and the invocation by Chaplain Stephen Servants.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good morning. I invite you to join me in prayer. Eternal Father, we gather today with grateful hearts, thankful for the joy and peace you bring as we turn to you. We have come together to celebrate the promotions of Captain Matthew Bartlett and Captain Clarence Dingman to the rank of Major. We give thanks for their leadership, exemplary service, and the sacrifices they have made in serving their country. Thank you for their spouses and families that supported them along the way. In addition to celebrating these promotions, we also gather to honor Command Sergeant Major Eric Geressy, as he is awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for his heroic leadership and actions in combat against al-Qaeda in Iraq. You, Father, are honored by his faith, which sustained him during the trials of battle, his unwavering work ethic, selflessness, valor, and warrior spirit. Thank you for watching over him and the warriors who stood beside him. We invite your spirit to guide and bless this ceremony. May all we say and do bring honor and glory to you. In your mighty and sacred name we pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Good morning and welcome to today's honorary promotion ceremony for Captain Matthew Bartlett and Captain Clarence Dingman to the rank of Major, and the Distinguished Service Cross Award ceremony to honor Sergeant Major Eric Geressy. We extend a warm welcome to all family, friends, and colleagues who have joined us today. The honorary promotion ceremony. Attention to orders. In consideration of a lifetime of commitment to this nation, trust, and confidence in the patriotism, valor, fidelity, and abilities of Captain Matthew Bartlett and Captain Clarence Dingman, we do hereby appoint them in the United States Army to the honorary grade of Major as such from this 18th day of March, 2025. By order of the Secretary of the Army. Ladies and gentlemen, Majors Dingman and Bartlett. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's promotion ceremony. The Secretary of Defense welcomes you to the Distinguished Service Cross Award ceremony in honor of Sergeant Major Eric J. Geressy, United States Army retired. It is my honor to introduce two of Sergeant Major Geressy's former commanders who will make a few remarks. First, we will hear from Colonel Myron Reinecke, United States Army retired.
Secretary Hegseth, General George, our distinguished guests, men of Eagle Company and the 2nd Squadron, 2nd Cavalry Regiment, family members and colleagues, and Sergeant Major Geressy. I am deeply honored to be here this morning as we award the Distinguished Service Cross to Command Sergeant Major, retired Eric J. Geressy. My name is Myron Reinecke, and I commanded the 2nd Squadron, 2nd Cavalry Regiment during the squadron's deployment to Iraq from August of 2007 until October of 2008. And my purpose this morning is simple. I am here to say thank you, however inadequately, but most sincerely. First, I'd like to thank God, from whom all blessings flow. And I thank God for sending Master Sergeant Eric Geressy to my squadron. Eric arrived in Vilseck, Germany, unexpectedly, in the middle of a winter's night during a snowstorm, because how else would Eric arrive? The command sergeant major and I gladly welcomed him as we were not yet at full strength. We had just moved as a restationing mission with the entire cavalry regiment from Fort Lewis, Washington to Vilseck, Germany, only 6 months before. And we had 2 of our 5 authorized first sergeants on hand. We quickly realized that Eric's leadership and experience would greatly benefit our young formation. And so we assigned him as the Eagle Company First Sergeant, where he immediately began to prepare his soldiers for our upcoming deployment to Iraq. And I'd like to thank those soldiers, non-commissioned officers, and officers of Eagle Company. Thank you for your trust in First Sergeant Geressy's leadership, experience, and guidance as you tirelessly trained and prepared for deployment and then worked with urgency and without sleep to prepare your combat outpost defense ahead of assuming control of your assigned battle space in East Rashid, Baghdad. Thank you especially for your cohesive bravery and courage under fire during the desperate defense of your outpost on the 4th of September 2007. Your actions that day are in keeping with the finest examples and traditions of the American soldier throughout our nation's history. And I am humbled and proud to have been your commander. Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to our senior leaders, both military and civilian, who continually endorsed and advocated for the upgrade of this award, despite repeated setbacks and disapprovals. At every turn, you reaffirmed your support for Sergeant Major Geressy to be properly recognized for his heroic leadership and actions in combat. Although nearly 18 years later, this day would not be possible without your advocacy, encouragement, and assistance. Thank you very much. And finally, my personal thanks to you, Eric. Your demonstrated care for your soldiers through tough, realistic training and tireless preparation and rehearsals were the precursors to victory. Upon occupation of Combat Outpost Blackfoot, your immediate assessment of the tactical situation anticipated the very attack that was to come. In the absence of your commander, you personally coordinated the defense of the outpost while simultaneously directing the fires of attack aviation and sending reports back to me. Your leadership and courageous actions under fire decisively defeated a complex attack against a determined enemy and numerically superior enemy without the loss of a single American soldier's life. Eric, for this, I am most grateful, and I owe you a debt that I can never repay. Thank you. September 4th could have been a tragic day. The enemy was hoping to achieve a spectacular event that would reverberate around the world in an attempt to influence American public opinion against the war in Iraq. Their success would have demoralized the entire squadron and our families back home at the very start of a grueling 15-month combat deployment. Instead, Eagle Company's victory inspired confidence throughout the squadron and marked the beginning of a campaign that led to the defeat of al-Qaeda in East Rashid and enabled the return of the city to local governance and Iraqi sovereignty. For its collective actions in Baghdad from September 2007 to May of 2008, the Cougar Squadron was awarded the Valorous Unit Award. And so today, Eric, we finally gathered to fully recognize your valor on that pivotal day in Iraq. Thankfully, we will never know what the outcome might have been had you not arrived to us on that dark, cold, snowy night in Germany. May God continue to bless you and watch over you. And may God bless the soldiers of the 2nd Cavalry Regiment and the United States Army. Always ready, second to none. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Michael Steele, United States Army retired.
First and foremost, Clarence and Matt, congratulations. That is so long overdue. Secretary Hegseth, General George, all of you Rakasans, and all you normal people. Eric, look at that. That is a testimony to you. Somebody told me this room had never been filled. What a shame. What a shame. Because we ought to be recognizing men like this and filling this room all the time. I recognize nobody came here today to hear me speak. Everybody came to hear the Secretary and hear Eric speak, and so I'll be brief. First and foremost, I want to thank God for allowing me to be an American and to live in the greatest country on earth. And I want to thank God for allowing me to be here today. One of the things that the Secretary and I share in common, among many things, is our belief in God and our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. I've been a Christian for 44 years, and I make it a habit that any time I travel or I speak, I always remember to thank God for his mercy in my life and the extraordinary blessings he's bestowed on me. Today has been a long time coming. The day that we collectively recognize Eric Geressy for his heroism and for his gallantry. But there's a sad aspect, there's a bad aspect to the day as well. That it took 18 years for a Warrior's Award to be accepted, to be processed, to be approved, and for him to be presented. 18 years. I am exceedingly grateful, Mr. Secretary and Chief, for your actions to make sure that we properly recognized Eric today. Thank you for that. But the sad truth is that there are hundreds of other young men who've done the right thing, picked up their rifles, and they've run into the darkness and done our nation's bidding and yet they're still waiting on being recognized. I can't tell you how encouraged I am, Chief, that you're in charge of the Army, and you, Secretary Hegseth, you're in charge of the military. Two men who have a well-deserved reputation for unfettered fairness and justice. And I know that you're both working hard to ensure that these men who are still waiting will be appropriately recognized in the future. I arrived this morning pretty early, got held up as security. Some Navy guys down there were. But I got to speak to almost everybody. And as I spoke to everybody, there was a question that kept coming to my mind. But I didn't ask anybody, and I just decided to wait and ask you collectively. Why are you here? Why are you here? We've got people, unfortunately, from California. We've got somebody over here from Fort Lewis, Washington. If I use antiquated names, I'm not sorry, I'm old. From Fort Lewis, Washington. Met somebody today from Idaho, and I may be the only person here. I didn't know people actually lived in Idaho. I thought they were just potatoes. Met somebody from Denver, Colorado. Missouri, I saw him a minute ago. Missouri, there you go, Missouri. We've got people from New Hampshire. I've only met a few guys from New Hampshire. Somebody from Eric's small town, New York City. Got quite a few people from Pennsylvania today. Obviously, a lot of people from Virginia and from D.C. Got a couple people from South Carolina, from North Carolina. Dr. Hart, there's Dr. Hart right in the back. Dr. Hart, Colonel Hart is the Raksan regimental psychiatrist. See me after this. I've got some new referrals for you. We've got about a company's worth of guys from Fort Campbell, Kentucky. We've got guys from Clarksville, Kentucky. There's a guy over here from Alabama. Somebody over here was from Texas. Somebody is from Louisiana. Right there, Louisiana. Somebody from Mississippi. We've got Ed Rogers, a mutual friend from Miami, for Eric and me, recognized as probably the best 53 pilot in the history of the Marine Corps. I met two guys from Europe. Somebody's here from Hawaii. We've got officers. We've got non-commissioned officers. We have junior enlisted. We have former superiors. We have peers. We have subordinates. We've come here today from around the country and from foreign countries to this point in time, to this specific location. And my question for you is, why are you here? Are you here because Eric Geressy has met your expectations of leadership? I'd say no, that's not why you're here. You see, you and I are here because Eric Geressy has exceeded our expectations of leadership. We're here because Eric is a fanatical soldier and he's a fanatical leader. I love you. A fanatical soldier and a fanatical leader. And I know I probably hurt somebody's feelings by using the word fanatic. I know we don't like that word unless we're talking about sports. And then you can paint yourself orange and go butt naked to an NFL game. And the announcer will say, our fans are the greatest. They're a bunch of fanatics. We want more. But when it comes to things that matter, like serving our nation in uniform, we've been slowly conditioned to accept unemotional, apathetic, flaccid leadership. Our soldiers, Mr. Secretary, those soldiers in the back, they want, and more importantly, they deserve fanatical leadership. And that is what Eric Geressy is. Eric Geressy is a fanatical leader. We're here today because Eric is the kind of impassioned leader that we all want to follow. We're here because Eric Geressy inspires us. Think for a minute. What would happen if we had 335 million citizens who are fanatical and unapologetic about being Americans? I'll hazard a guess and say we would never have a recruiting problem ever again. Listen, I've had the honor, I've had the privilege to serve with some of the bravest and the toughest men on earth. And as I think back of the warriors who have been in my life, men who I aspire to be, men who I desire to emulate. One of those at the top of that list is Eric Geressy. Eric Geressy is the quintessential American soldier. Eric, I thank God for you. And I thank God for all you other fanatics that are in the room. I am honored to be here, but more importantly, I'm honored to be your friend. This nation owes you an extraordinary debt of gratitude for your honorable service to this nation under the most difficult of circumstances. And I hope and I pray that God will continue to bless you in the future. And for all you Roxons here, you need to know I am proud of each and every one of you. And more importantly, I love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our host for today's ceremony, the 29th Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Pete Hegseth.
Colonel, you were wrong about something. I did come to hear you speak. And so did this crowd. It's an absolute honor to be here. I was in with Conor McGregor yesterday. I was in the Oval Office a couple days ago. I'm in every meeting you can conceive of. None of them make me nervous. This does. It makes me nervous because it matters. It makes me nervous because it's in front of peers. It's in front of people that I admire. People who were with me shoulder to shoulder, in combat, on the battlefield, when everything mattered. When it was all on the line. All that mattered was who you were with, what you were capable of together, what the mission was in front of you, who had your back behind you. And so, Colonel, I want to thank you for always having our back. Colonel Mike Steele always had our back, and we knew it. And I knew it from the first speech he gave at Fort Campbell up on a stage just like this. You guys remember it. Put Patton to shame. It is a privilege and it is an honor to stand in front of all of you to honor one man, Eric Geressy. I knew him as First Sergeant Eric Geressy. A lot of you knew him as the same, who changed my life, changed a lot of your lives. That's why this room is packed with people who were impacted by him. Yet I know when you talk to him, and I've talked to him today, and a lot of you have, and we'll talk to him throughout the day, he will simply say, as he always does, this is not about me. This is about all of you. This is about what we did together. And I give a lot of speeches, and I stand on a lot of stages, and I get a lot of applause. And every time I speak, basically what I think about is this room. I think about the men that I see out here, many faces that are very familiar to me, that I haven't seen in a very long time, who were there for me and with me when it mattered most. And the fact that they never get the applause, they never get the headlines, they never get the bright lights, they never get the microphones. No one's heard their story. No one's familiar with their story. No one's pinned an award on them. And if they got it, maybe it was sent to them to the mail clerk, like it was the first time to Eric Geressy. Literally, his Silver Star was sent through the mail to a mail clerk. They didn't get the recognition. They didn't get the praise. And I remember that every time I stand. This is not about me. I'm nothing special. I'm a soldier who served under extraordinary leadership and am more honored today than any other opportunity I've had at the Pentagon thus far to stand on this stage with fellow soldiers, with the men of Eagle Company, the men of Charlie Company, the men of those units who understand what the stakes were, understand how significant those moments were. We'll never forget them, are shaped in every possible way since then about them. And just like we look at the Medal of Honor, when someone receives the Medal of Honor and you say, you know what, yes, that's an award for one individual, but it really is an award for my generation, for what we did. I know, like you, that's how I feel for Eric Geressy receiving this award today. Long overdue, injustice of multitudes of injustices served upon him and other men he served with. And I remember when we first sort of hatched maybe the opportunity that something like this could be possible. It felt so distant, so impossible, so unlikely, so improbable. We felt like on behalf of those men that he served with, we have to do something about it. Because each one of us has not one Eric Geressy story, we have lots of Eric Geressy stories. Mine, I showed up as a brand new first lieutenant to the unit just a few weeks before we mobilized to go to Kuwait for pre-mob. I was a National Guard, Ivy League, Wall Street, non-Ranger qualified platoon leader who had not deployed before. How do you think Eric Geressy looked at me when I showed up? I was even wearing the wrong uniform, the old BDUs, because I was in a National Guard uniform. This guy looked me up and down and was like, who the hell is this guy? The only person that had vouched for me was at that time Captain Dan Hart, who's now a colonel and an incredible human being, an amazing example for many of us, had been my platoon trainer at IOBC. And I'll spare you the full story, but I was itching to get involved, and he vouched for me, and Colonel Steele signed off on it, and my unit did, and sure enough, I found myself at Fort Campbell, and doing everything I could to sort of prove that I was capable of being part of this incredible unit. And Eric, as he was both my toughest critic and also my best mentor at the same time. He gave me a very affectionate nickname. It was National Garbage. That I got to earn my way out of in real time. And his expectations were incredibly high because he had been to combat. He'd seen it. He understood it. And he wanted to infuse in us, just like Colonel Steele, this understanding of in that moment, in that crucible is when you are tested. And the only thing that prepares you for that crucible is the training, the realistic training, time and time again, iteration after iteration, that prepares you for that moment, that explosion, that crack of the bullet. How do you respond? Will you get violent quickly, as is necessary? And so he pounded that into my skull, metaphorically and physically, probably. We trained more. And it wasn't until that, a first couple initial operations, all I cared when I came back basically was, did Eric Geressy, did the first sergeant feel like we were squared away, like we did all right? Nothing else mattered. It was the men you were serving with and the reality and the perception of your leadership with them. Were you going to be there for you? Were you going to bring the effects to bear on the enemy necessary? Were you prepared? Were you over-prepared? Were you, what was the word you used is, were you fanatical about preparing every single aspect that we were doing? Because the goal, yes, it was to accomplish the mission, but it was to bring your boys home with you in the process. We arranged funerals for the other side, not ours. And that was something that was, whether it was in Fort Campbell, at Kuwait, and throughout our mission. So it doesn't surprise me that when he went to Eagle Company, he infused the very same mentality. We're not taking over a combat outpost. We're going to immediately improve the defense in real time. And guess what? Joe is going to bitch about it because we're going to spend 36 hours without sleeping, without resting. Am I right about that, sir? That's right about that. Yeah. Yet, he bitched. Because he had been there. He had seen it. He understood what would happen once chaos rained down on the entire formation, on the entire platoon, and on the entire company. And in that moment, either you were prepared or you weren't. And Eric Geressy went back again to combat after the injustice that happened to him on our rotation, because he didn't want it happening to another subset of men if he could be a part of preventing it. And that's precisely what he did for Eagle Company. That's precisely what he did on that day in 2007. It's precisely why we are here today. And we're not just here because of that day. Yes, that day is incredibly meaningful. And we will read the citation today. And I told my kids this morning, I said, you listen up. That's why they're here today. Listen to that citation. Understand what men did, what a man did, what a group of people did in a far-flung place no one's ever heard of, at a time no one will ever remember, in a way that shaped the lives of those men that will change them forever. And we ought to use a forum like this as much as possible to remind people of those special things, to motivate future generations to be willing to do the same. And what we celebrate, what we recognize is a reflection of what we honor, what we believe is important. And in this case, it's recognizing the actions of that day and undoing an injustice. So we're here today because a lot of men stood up for Eric Geressy after he stood up for them. They would not quit on him, would not quit on the injustice that was done to him, saying, we will continue to push this forward because we understand, without naming names, we understand the reason why this particular packet, this particular action, never quite made it up to the top of the Army, never quite made it to the upper echelon, never quite made it for signature. Even though those that were most directly involved, that saw it firsthand, that were commanders at the time, all the way up to General Odierno and General Petraeus, signed off on the actions that day merit a Distinguished Service Cross. But it was downgraded and it was sent to a mail clerk. And we all know why. Today, that changes. Today, that wrong is made right. I want to thank all the men and women that didn't stop, that kept pushing, that weren't silent. I want to thank, by the way, Senator Rubio and his staff, now Secretary of State Rubio. As a resident of Florida, they took up the case when no one else was really willing to move on it. And they pushed, and they kept pushing, and we pushed them a little bit, and then they kept pushing. And Secretary Rubio sends his regards. For sure, as does the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, also a Floridian who was aware of this case. General Petraeus submitted time and time again recommendations to reinforce the recommendation he made in real time. As we resubmitted the packet, how many times did we submit the packet? 15 times? I don't even know. As we resubmitted it again, the men of Eagle Company, who wrote another sworn statement and another one with new information reminding the folks who had disapproved it why this was worthy of recognition. So throughout this process, the men I look at and see out here, the men and women, but the men that served with Eric, never forgot what he did for them and with them. And as a result, this audience never forgot about what Eric did and wanted to see a day like today. And I'll never forget, it was, a year ago or so, I thought, man, wouldn't that be incredible? Wouldn't that be incredible if you actually got this thing? And President Trump won, and we were able to present you the DSC. And then sure enough, a couple months after that, President Trump wins, and he picks an Army major to be his Secretary of Defense. National garbage. And I remember talking to Eric. I said, Eric, not only are we going to get you this award, but we're going to pin it on you in the bowels of the Pentagon with everybody here with you. And here we are today. And now, those of you that don't know, and most of you do, one of the first people I called when I was given the honor by President Trump to be chosen for this position was Eric. Eric has a way of sticking with you in a good way. I thought, who the hell? This is a big job. Who do I call? One of the first people on my list. Well, actually, I should tell the story first. I called Eric 2 minutes before the announcement hit Fox News that I had been chosen. And Eric, I can't say what he said on the phone because my kids are here. But he went running into the other room, and sure enough, Laura Ingraham announced it, and he almost passed out. He couldn't believe it. But right soon after that, as we were talking, I said, Eric, if I'm confirmed, if this happens, I need you to come with me. I need you there by my side, just like you were there with us by our side. By the way, Eric always had a way of showing up when it was the most difficult time. And he's not making it more difficult. He knows it's your most difficult time. And that's why he's not in the command post. He's out in the field, at your combat outpost, on patrol, on Christmas, on the worst days when you're missing the family the most. There's Eric Geressy. And he's possibly wearing a Santa Claus outfit. With proper body armor as well. Body armor, of course. He was always there for his men whenever they needed him. And when I called him, he said, sir, I will be there with you through thick and thin. And sure enough, he was. He was sitting behind me during the confirmation hearing. You may have seen him. He's the prettiest one of the bunch, except my wife. And I'll never forget, he told me after that, because I told him, I said, don't buy an apartment in D.C. till this process is done. You never know. I said, don't do it. Don't put that pressure on me. Sure enough, after the hearing, he went to me and said, I bought my apartment 2 days ago, sir. I just didn't tell you. He said, I knew you were going to nail it. It was going to be fine. I said, damn you. And sure enough, Eric Geressy's right down the hall from me, from the Office of the Secretary of Defense. And that is exactly the kind of voice that we need inside the decision loop, inside the conversations about the types of decisions being made for the joint force, for the armed forces of the United States of America. Someone who has been there, who's been in the middle of it, who's never did it for himself, always did it for others, thought of the troops in real time, of the impact on them and their families. If you know him, he's the biggest tough guy you've ever met, but he's also the biggest softy you've ever met. He's an amazing human being. I can't tell you already how many times he's come to me and said, hey, take a look at this, think about this, you're missing that. Or he's reading the tea leaves and sees an ambush up ahead, says, look around, put your head up. That's the kind of counsel that we need. That's the kind of counsel that I greatly value. It's an honor to have you there. He's earned the respect of our staff, as you surprises nobody, in real time. And he's going to have a chance to shape the very force that he was a part of shaping, first as a private, and then all the way through Command Sergeant Major. Even the stuff he did more recently down in Southcom has been immediately valuable to what we're doing across the force. So it's really the honor of a career to be able to be here with all of you. I look forward to be getting a chance to say hi to so many of you I haven't seen in a long time. It just feels good. Sometimes the good guys win. And it feels like today that happened. So, Eric, I want to thank you. I want to thank your wife. I want to thank your family, some of which we were able to get here at the last minute. I'm glad we did. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank my wife, my kids for being here, the Army Secretary for being here as well. Dan Driscoll, thank you. General George, thank you so much for pushing this through to the end. And then to finish where Colonel Steele properly started, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I think, praise God, from whom all blessings flow. All good things, all bad things happen for a reason. There is no plan B in our life. We're all here for a reason orchestrated by Him. And may we be instruments for Him during our time on earth. That's certainly how I see my job on behalf of our country, God and country, and working alongside men like Eric. So I'm honored to be here with all of you today. Grateful for what you've done. And how about we pin an award on this guy? Let's do it. I love you.
Colonel Michael Loconsolo will now read the Distinguished Service Cross narrative.
First Sergeant Eric J. Geressy, United States Army, distinguished himself by extraordinary heroism in action in the performance of outstanding service to the United States as First Sergeant for Eagle Company, 2nd Squadron, 2nd Stryker Cavalry Regiment assigned to Multinational Division Baghdad, Iraq, on September 4th, 2007 during our Operation Iraqi Freedom. Eagle Company was completing a relief in place of a combat outpost in Al-Hadar, southern Baghdad, to assume duty as the squadron's main effort. Eagle Company's area of operation was Al-Qaeda in Iraq's center of gravity, plagued by Sunni and Shia sectarian violence. On September 3rd, the outgoing unit departed the combat outpost. First Sergeant Geressy immediately established the defense of the outpost as the top priority for the company. Under his guidance, the company worked day and night, sandbagging windows and guard towers, repositioning key weapon systems, installing bulletproof glass for the towers, and erecting camouflage netting along the entire perimeter of the outpost's rooftop for concealment. During the morning of September 4th, the company's executive officer was located at Forward Operating Base Falcon, supervising the retrofit of the company's vehicles. The company commander and fire support officer were also at Forward Operating Base Falcon as well, attending a meeting. First Sergeant Geressy was the only company-level leader at the outpost. In the early afternoon, the company received orders to investigate a possible vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. While one of the platoons was investigating the vehicle, they came under enemy fire. First Sergeant Geressy deployed the Quick Reaction Force platoon and successfully controlled link-up and extraction of the platoon in contact, killing 3 enemy with no injuries to friendly forces. Within 15 minutes after the platoon returned to the outpost, it came under a complex attack by between 120 and 150 determined enemy fighters. The enemy initiated the attack by firing 2 rocket-propelled grenades and mortars from approximately 100 meters away, followed by a heavy volume of fire from AK-47 rifles, machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, and sniper fire. The enemy arrayed themselves in a manner that allowed them to attack the outpost from 3 directions simultaneously. Once the firing began, First Sergeant Geressy immediately requested an air weapons team and moved to the roof. First Sergeant Geressy exposed himself to direct enemy fire by moving from guard tower to guard tower, assessing the situation and inspiring the soldiers by calmly encouraging them to keep up their rates of fire. At this time, one of his soldiers, Specialist Holly, at Tower 1 received a gunshot wound from enemy fire. First Sergeant Geressy set the highest example of personal bravery through his demonstrated valor and calmness under fire. Under direct enemy fire, First Sergeant Geressy quickly moved Specialist Holly and controlled Holly's evacuation while helping to carry the soldier off of the roof. First Sergeant Geressy again returned to the roof, this time directing the fire of key weapon systems until the company gained fire superiority. During this time period, the air weapons team arrived on station. First Sergeant Geressy gave the air weapons team a quick situation report and directed soldiers to mark one of the known enemy locations with a smoke grenade. Once the air weapons team identified the building, First Sergeant Geressy, acting as the on-scene commander, authorized the helicopters to launch a Hellfire missile into the enemy's defensive position, crippling the enemy. During a subsequent lull in fire, First Sergeant Geressy returned to the forward area support team and reassured the injured soldier. while receiving a report on his condition from the squadron's physician's assistant. Based on the condition of the soldier and the fight at the time, First Sergeant Geressy directed that the soldier be ground evacuated to the 28th Combat Support Hospital. This was done immediately by the company's quick reaction force, which First Sergeant Geressy had activated once the attack began. On his way back to the rooftop, First Sergeant Geressy grabbed as many cans of ammunition as he could carry and resupplied 2 of the 50 caliber machine guns on the rooftop. This action ensured they did not run out of ammunition during the firefight. As the quick reaction force exited the outpost with the injured soldier, the enemy increased their fire in an attempt to disrupt the evacuation. First Sergeant Geressy once again rallied his company and ensured the company gained and maintained fire superiority. Yet again, First Sergeant Geressy coordinated with the air weapons team to launch additional Hellfire missiles and strafing runs with their 30mm cannons, which destroyed the enemy's remaining defensive position. With this decisive action, Eagle Company successfully broke the will of the enemy's continued attack. First Sergeant Geressy immediately supervised the consolidation and reorganization of men, ammunition, and key weapon systems. Aware that ammunition was low, First Sergeant Geressy radioed back to his soldiers on Forward Operating Base Falcon and coordinated for a resupply of ammunition to be delivered to the outpost. This foresight prepared the company for a possible counterattack. Throughout the day and evening of September 4th, First Sergeant Eric J. Geressy repeatedly subjected himself to intense, unrelenting enemy fire in order to evacuate a severely injured soldier, while also directing the defense of the combat outpost by an infantry rifle company and an air weapons team during a fight that lasted over 6 hours. First Sergeant Geressy heroically led his company in high-intensity combat while simultaneously fulfilling the jobs of the company commander, the fire support officer, and the first sergeant. On numerous occasions, he fearlessly exposed himself to direct enemy fire to instill confidence in his men, care for his wounded, and to destroy the enemy. As a direct result of First Sergeant Geressy's preparation, leadership, and gallantry, Eagle Company killed 18 Al-Qaeda fighters with no additional wounded soldiers. First Sergeant Geressy's personal courage, uncommon valor, and selfless service contributed directly to the safety and evacuation of 2 wounded and the recovery of 1 fallen soldier. First Sergeant Geressy, without regard for his personal safety, courageously risked his life under enemy fire to save the lives of his fellow soldiers. God bless.
Mr. Secretary, Sergeant Major Geressy, please step forward to the center stage. Mrs. Geressy, please join Secretary Hegseth in front of the flags on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the presentation of the award. Attention to orders. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress 9 July 1918, amended by Act of 25 July 1963, has awarded the Distinguished Service Cross to First Sergeant Eric J. Geressy, Company E, 2nd Squadron, 2nd Stryker Cavalry Regiment, for extraordinary heroism in action on 4 September 2007, during combat operations against a highly armed Al-Qaeda insurgent force in southern Baghdad, Iraq. First Sergeant Eric J. Geressy repeatedly subjected himself to intense, unrelenting enemy fire in order to evacuate a severely injured soldier, while also directing the defense of the combat outpost by both providing direction to both an infantry rifle company and air weapons team during a fight that lasted over 6 hours. First Sergeant Geressy set the highest example of personal bravery through his demonstrated valor and calmness under fire. First Sergeant Geressy's valiant actions prevented enemy insurgent forces from overrunning the company. His actions were directly responsible for also preventing any other additional United States military casualties. First Sergeant Geressy's actions under fire while serving to fill the roles of company commander, fire support officer, and first sergeant were performed with marked distinction and bravery. First Sergeant Geressy's distinctive accomplishments are in keeping with the finest traditions of military service, reflect great credit upon himself, 2nd Strykel Cavalry Regiment, and the United States Army. Signed, General Randy George, Chief of Staff of the Army, and Mr. Mark Averill, former Acting Secretary of the Army. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Major Geressy.
A lot to follow, a lot going on in here. Hey, so I normally, when I do these things, I'll write a bunch of remarks, try to keep myself on script so I don't get out of my left and right sectors of fire, which will relate to some of you folks. But what do you say? What do you say with a room like this full of all your people you respect the most? As this has been going on forever, it seems like. This is very surreal. I mean, the whole thing. Apparently, I'm really good at showing up in the middle of a snowstorm in places, which I totally forgot about that in Germany. And then I get here, and then the first PT run, I've done it a long time with the secretary, was in the middle of Warsaw, Poland, and it's snowing. And I'm like, I can't go that fast anymore, but I can still go a little bit. And I ran up in front of him, and I was like, hey, pick up the pace, old man. And he just kind of looks at me like, what the hell are you, can't even believe you're still running. So, but this is really an honor of a lifetime to continuing to serve, continue to serve the country, serve the troops, and serve the secretary. These are very hard jobs up here, and we're doing the best we can, but it's always for the troops. The one thing I want to say is, if things go sideways, combat, you could control certain things. A lot of things, most you cannot control. But you're definitely we will have your back for all the troops, all the service members, doing things on our country's behalf. You couldn't have a better leader than Secretary Hegseth. So I want to give him a round of applause. So when he did call me, I had just come back from being downrange. I think we'd come back from Trinidad, and I was very surprised. I had a bunch of commentary, and I remember saying to him, I was like, hey, you got to bring people up there you could trust. This is going to be a very difficult job. They're going to try to kill you when you get there. So, and he's like, yeah, I need you to go up there with me. And my response was, I don't know if you remember this. I was like, well, I wasn't talking about me. I was talking about other people, But we'll skip over the rest of that because I don't want to traumatize everybody in here. Awards like this, Medals of Honor, the Service Crosses, Silver Stars, they're presented to individuals. but they're earned by teams. That's by each and every one of you in here. Whether you were supporting somebody downrange, whether you were there. So what I'd like to do is, let's see how many people from Eagle Company survived St. Patty's Day. Please stand up. Please stay standing, Fernando. Get it back. Nobody said you guys could sit down yet. I'm up here. I'm a sergeant major again for at least another hour. Any other members from the 2nd Cavalry Regiment, 2nd Stryker Cavalry, please stand up. I like everybody from Charlie Company, 3187. Please stand up. Anyone else who served in the 101st Airborne with us, please stand up. Any other veterans or those of you that I've served with all over the place, you know who you are, 7th Group, SEAL Team 4, all NSW folks, please stand up. And everyone else still serving or a veteran, please stand to be recognized. And finally, any Gold Star families, please stand up. So although this medal has been awarded to me, it belongs to all of you. Thank you. And for all the troops we have serving all over the place, if anybody's going to see this, I'm sure it will become memes or something later on. Duffel blog, maybe. We're praying for you all. We're extremely proud of everything you do for the country. This goes for everyone else here standing. America will be proud if they knew all the sacrifice, everything you've done for each other during the most difficult of circumstances. You fought extremely well. Risked it all for your brother and sister on your left and your right. Thank you. Please sit down. I would go into the national garbage story, but I'll share this one story and then I'm going to get away from here. So when we were doing this, I was spending a lot of quality time with the media, and one of the reporters asked me, did we have any nicknames for the secretary? And I was just thinking that. I was like, I'm not going to say nothing. So I was like, I don't want to get out. The next thing he'll be getting asked that in the hearings, which were interesting. So once again, thank you everybody that came here. Thank you for what you've done for the country. God bless you all. God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the singing of the Army song, the benediction, and the departure of the official party.
March along, sing a song with the army of the free. Count the brave, count the true, who have fought to victory. We're the army and proud of our name. We're the army and proudly proclaim. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. For where'er we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along.
Almighty God, as we conclude this ceremony, we ask for your continued blessings upon all who are gathered here today. May the courage, selflessness, and unwavering devotion to duty exemplified by those who fought for our freedom inspire us to live lives of purpose and service. We ask for your divine protection over all who wear the uniform of our nation and those who support them. Grant them the courage to face adversity, the strength to persevere, and the peace that comes from knowing you are their constant refuge. Let your grace and wisdom guide us all as we go forth from this place, committed to upholding the values of faith, duty, and integrity. In your holy and righteous name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Please remain standing for the departure of the official party and distinguished visitors.